All right, and welcome back to the Vendetta Sports Hockey Show. I guess that's what we're calling it. We don't have a name yet. Andrew McGinnis is joining us this week, along with the two that were here last week, Gavin Daly and Emma Brown. Emma, did you come up with topics this week? Because I do have topics, but you're probably going to yell at me for them.
You know what? I won't yell at you for them.
Because you didn't come up with topics.
Yeah. I won't yell at you for them because I didn't do what I said I was going to do. So.
Okay. I figured that was going to happen, so I came up with topics. All right. So the first segment we're going to do is the same as last week, on or off sides. If you think the statement is true, you will say on sides and give your reasoning. If you think the statement is false, you will say off sides and give your reasoning. Chicago Blackhawks. They are 2-0 since they fired their former head coach, Jeremy Colleton. Does this mean the Blackhawks are maybe back, or does this mean nothing? So on or off sides? Andrew, go ahead.
Off sides. I mean, maybe you're right, but I mean, 2 games is such a small sample size, and they've dug themselves into such a deep hole. I know there's some crazy stat that Elliot Friedman's tracked since forever. I think since like the start of the salary cap era, I think only 3 teams or something crazy like that who are been 4 points out of a playoff spot on November 1st have gone on to make the playoffs that year. Blackhawks, I believe, are one of 3 teams this year to be in that situation. So it's going to take a lot more than 2 consecutive wins for me to put them back on the right side of the bubble.
Gavin?
Offside. They're still a bad team, but as long as Marc-Andre Fleury keeps picking up points, I don't give a fuck.
Okay.
Actually, no, I take that back. I dropped them today. They can be as bad as they want to be. Fuck it. I don't care. They're a bad team. They're a bad team.
Emma?
Offsides, even a blind squirrel finds a nut sometimes, eventually. So.
Yeah.
2 in a row.
I figured that would be the answer. But they do play Arizona next, so maybe it'll be 3 in a row.
I mean, probably.
The only team worse than you.
All right.
I have the stat from Elliot Friedman that I was just referencing. It's 9 of 59 teams since the 05-06 season have made the playoffs after being more than 4 points out of a spot on November 1st. It's a little bit different this year since the season started about a week later than normal. But honestly, that probably makes it even more damning on the Blackhawks that they were out of it so quickly. So
I know stats guys like you are definitely celebrating the Seth Jones thing because he has not looked good.
Yes, the analytics community, I think, is winning that more than the analytics community thought they were going to win.
All right, next thing on the list here, Brady Tkachuk. He was recently named the captain of the Ottawa Senators. Do we think he deserves the captaincy, or do we think he does not deserve the captaincy here? Gavin, go ahead.
So, which way? I don't think he deserves it. I think that is Thomas Chabot's team. I think he deserves captain. Obviously, we don't know what goes on within the organization. They may have offered it, and Chabot said, no, you know what? Tkachuk can have it. It may have been something that Tkachuk put into his deal when he signed it that, okay, yes, I'm signing this deal, but I have to be made captain. There's a lot of different things that could have possibly happened. I still consider the Ottawa Senators to be Thomas Chabot's team, no matter who has the C on their chest. So, to me, I don't think he deserved it. To me, it's more about how did he get it? Was he the unanimous choice, or was it something that was, hey, yeah, I'll resign for you guys, but I want that seat.
Chabot, he currently leads the NHL in ice time, so that's an interesting stat. Emma, what do you think?
I mean, it's his team.
I'm gonna say that there's a lot of politics that go into the captaincy and who gets the C and who doesn't get the C. So I feel like I can't really say on or off sides just because I don't know enough about Ottawa. I'm not going to try to make an opinion. There's too many politics. So,
Andrew?
There you go.
I'll say onside for this one. I mean, Chabot would have been like a perfectly legitimate choice, but Tkachuk is a perfectly fine choice as well. Former top 5 pick. He's been one of their franchise faces the last couple of years. And obviously they signed that long-term extension, so that's a guy you know is going to be there for the long haul, just like Thomas Chabot. I think either would have been an onside choice.
I like him. He likes to fight people. He's scrappy, puts the puck in the net. It's hard to root against that guy.
Yeah,
All right,
actually,
next
you know
thing-
what? I take it back.
yeah.
I don't like him because he scored his first 2 NHL goals against the Flyers. I forgot about that. So sorry, Brady.
And the Flyers are on tonight against the
Yeah,
Maple Leafs, but we'll get
If
to
I
that
seem
in a bit.
distracted at any point tonight, it's probably because I'm watching the Flyers game on split screen on my laptop. So
Fair.
Actively supporting the Maple Leafs tonight. Come on, Jack Campbell. Let's do this.
No, we're riding for Carter Hart. We're riding for Carter Hart.
yes, Stada.
Fuck no.
They can both play
All right.
well. Carter can just play a little bit better.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I need the points more than he's. Fucking
All right,
Black
next thing
Magic
on my
Gray
list.
here is pulling some
Yeah,
shit.
I have the black magic.
Campbell just made
All
two
right, next
big
thing-
saves early on. So there you go, Gavin.
Well, I don't like to hear that. It's been a while since Farabee's gotten a goal. He needs to, put one in the net here.
Yes, that line looked much better on Saturday. So we'll see if they can turn it around. I'm sorry for hijacking the show. For
It's cool. That's what we're here for. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
All right. The biggest news this week, obviously, the Jack Eichel trade. So I just want to maybe go around and hear maybe each person's 30-second to a minute opinion. Did Buffalo get fleeced? Did the Vegas Knights make a mistake? What are your overall thoughts here on the Eichel trade? Because it happened literally the day after we recorded last week. Andrew?
I wouldn't say that Buffalo got fleeced in this trade. I wouldn't say they certainly won it either. I mean, you break down the return piece by piece. So they get Alex Tuck, who's been mostly a third-line guy in Vegas, but is definitely good enough to play in your top six. He's a speedy winger, can score 25 goals, 50 points. He's also a Buffalo native, and he seems really excited to be a Sabre, which not everyone
he does.
knows the Sabres is. That's a good thing. I know their GM, Kevin Adams, has talked a lot about getting guys who want to be in Buffalo. That's a guy who wants to be in Buffalo, and he's a pretty darn good player on top of that. Not a superstar, but a pretty darn good player. Peyton Krebs has the potential to become a top six guy as well. Could be part of the solution again for Buffalo moving forward in a couple years as they really start to accelerate their rebuild. A first-round pick, I mean, it's probably going to be a late first-round pick, and it is top 10 protected, but it's still a first-round pick. That's another potential top six forward, top four defenseman that you turn into. And you also get a second-round pick. I don't think it's an amazing return, and maybe they could have gotten more if, say, they moved him at the draft when teams had more financial flexibility and were looking to maybe more teams would have been looking to make a bigger move. But obviously, with the complications with the surgery and the Sabres losing leverage really the minute Eichel demanded a trade request and it only going down over the time that's passed, I think it's a respectable return for Buffalo.
Gavin, any thoughts? I know you talk shit on it in the power rankings, but any surprise there that Buffalo refused to retain any salary? Probably could have gotten a better return there too. They did that.
No, but that was
clearly not ready to win either. So
yeah, but that was their thing right from the off. They said they were not retaining salary, so that made it difficult for a lot of teams that would have been in on Eichel, but were very, very close to the cap. In Eichel's interview with Elliot Freeman, he said that at one point he really thought it was a strong possibility he was going to Colorado. I would love to know what the stumbling block for that was. After seeing what Vegas gave up for him, I would be really interested to know what the Avalanche weren't willing to do. Now, obviously, we don't have this year's first round, so that could be in it. We gave that up for Darcy Kemper. Great job. But it would really interest me to see what Colorado weren't willing to do. Because as I said a minute ago, if you're giving me Jack Eichel and take Sam Girard, JT Compher, Martin Kaut, a ton of freaking prospects that we have and draft picks, then I'm saying yeah. So in that aspect, I think Vegas won it. In what they gave up for Eichel, I think yeah. And as Andrew said, Buffalo wanted people who wanted to be there. That's one of the reasons why he took him going the other way. He wanted to be there.
Also, I'd like to add, I think Buffalo was really smart for not retaining salary. I mean, yes, they're obviously not going to be cup contenders this year or next year, but 5 years is a really long time, and you just never know what can happen. I mean, the Maple Leafs are still retaining salary on Phil Kessel right now, $1.2 million. They could really use that cap space. So I don't think it would have been smart for Buffalo to make such a long-term financial commitment to having money off your books for someone who's not playing for your hockey team, even if it could have turned that second-round pick into another top 10 protected first.
And
Emma?
the other thing as well is Trey, is what are Vegas going to do going forward? Because that depth becomes really, really dodgy here, really, really quick after this season. Like, yes, you've got a great top line, but as the Avalanche have shown, you can't do everything with your top line. As Boston have shown, you can't do everything with your top line.
Also, a fully healthy Vegas team is nearly $5 million over the cap.
Yeah, I was going to say
with no spares accounted for.
I guess the move would be to let Riley Smith walk, and then
I'm
just
saying
go from there, not?
This year, if everyone gets healthy before the playoffs, they won't be allowed. They'll have to move someone like now.
Someone will take Riley Smith.
That could be just like throwing a sweetener to someone for Evgeny Dodonov, who makes $5 million.
I would do that yesterday.
That trade again. when they made that trade, I kind of defended it because Dodonov had been good in Florida, and I basically said, all right, this definitely takes them out of the Jack Eichel sweepstakes. You don't trade for a player coming off the year that Dodonov had in Ottawa who makes $5 million if you even think you have a chance of still getting Jack Eichel. So now they've actually gone out and gotten Jack Eichel. That trade looks really rough, especially because Dodonov has been great in Vegas so far.
Emma?
I mean, I'm not at all surprised with the trade. I was hoping he would end up in Colorado, but I wasn't really counting on it just because, I don't think we have a player that Buffalo would take, that we'd be willing to give up. Does that make sense?
Makar, send him Makar.
Absolutely not. You're on drugs. But yeah, I also would like to know what Colorado wasn't willing to give up, but I'm not shocked that he didn't get to Colorado. I was kind of surprised that it happened that quickly after we recorded last week. Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if one of the
pieces. Show might already have.
I wouldn't be surprised if one of the pieces. I wouldn't be surprised if one of the pieces Colorado weren't willing to give up was Justin Barron.
What about Bowen Byram?
I would not be surprised if that was basically. No, you're not giving up Bowen Byram. You're not giving up Bowen Byram, Cale Makar, because that's your top.
Alex Newhook was the name that came to my mind as like a Peyton Krebs comparable.
And here's the thing: if you're giving me Eichel, I give up Newhook. But what else is in the deal? If you're talking Sam Girard, Alex Newhook, and picks. Maybe, yeah, sure, why not? Because here's the thing, Joe Sakic, and we praise him all the time, and I've a lot of love for Joe Sakic. We talk about how good of a GM he's been and some of the deals he's done, but you're very much in win now mode. If you don't win in the next 2 years, and it becomes a lot more than getting paid. So get Eichel now, do it.
I think that's the biggest argument for Vegas, right? They're definitely a win now team, and they're not young.
Yeah,
Pacioretty's in his.
they need to win this year.
Petrangelo's in his 30s, and Stone's up there. They're not spring chickens, despite being a semi-new expansion team.
They need to win this year.
Really leaving it up to me. I mean, I'm honestly a big Flyers fan, in case anyone doesn't know. So I've watched all of Carter Hart's games this year, and yeah, the kid definitely looks back. I don't necessarily think it was a hot take to expect that he was going to bounce back. I mean, he had a .917 save percentage as a rookie, and then a .914 save percentage as a sophomore, and then an .877 last year. I think it's fairly clear because yes, there was always a chance that Hart, sucks this year too, and that maybe he's going to have like the Matt Murray trajectory where he has a couple really good years at the start of his career and then falls off. So I don't want to say it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to bounce back, but I mean, of those three numbers, 877 is clearly the outlier. He has 6 goals saved above expected per moneypuck.com, which puts him right around the top 10. He's looked very sharp in all his games. I've been watching the Flyers game tonight alongside this show. He's looked sharp in the first period, faced like a dozen shots against Toronto, stopped them all. So good news for Trey. Good news for Gavin. Jack Campbell stopped all of his too. So, I mean, I wasn't necessarily expecting not this from Carter Hart. Maybe he's been a little bit better than I would have expected this early in the season. I mean, you understand with a .926 save percentage, so maybe like a tad better than I expected, but I was always expecting Carter Hart to bounce back, and it's good to see those expectations rewarded.
I don't think any of us are surprised or hold it against him that he bounced back. It's just the fact that Trey picked him again and he's picking up him fantasy points that I cannot stand right now.
Also,
Um, I think
similarly to how Connor.
they need him to bounce back because if you have Martin Jones as your backup, you need your starter to be good.
Well, I
You
was
really
actually
do.
gonna make this point. You know who the NHL leader in save percentage is as of yesterday, and maybe today, with at least 3 games played?
Martin Jones.
Martin Jones, baby. He's seen 100 shots and he stopped 95. Martin Jones has probably even looked maybe like a tad better than Carter Hart so far this year. Now, I'm not saying Martin Jones for starter, Martin Jones for Vezina. I mean, obviously, he's not going to have a 950 save percentage forever. But the thing about Jones is he's looked just really steady so far as the Flyers' backup goaltender. He's looked locked in. He hasn't. The criticism from his play in San Jose when it fell off the last couple of years seemed to be that he got chaotic, that he got moving around too much, that he got himself out of position. He seemed very in control with the Flyers. And yes, obviously 3 games is a ridiculously small sample size. And yes, he's not going to have a 950 save percentage forever. But the Flyers' goaltending looks pretty solid so far this season. And for everything that went wrong with the Flyers last year, I made this point in one of my recent game recaps. For everything that went wrong with the Flyers last year, they finished only 19th in a league where 16 teams made the playoffs, and they had like an 880 team save percentage or something close to that. So if you just boost that number up to top 10, top 15, I mean, that alone in itself is enough to maybe get them into the playoffs. Maybe not all the way, but at least get them very close, because they were already fairly close beforehand. And that's before you've been factoring in young players bouncing back and the moves that Chuck Fletcher made in the offseason to get guys like Ryan Ellis and Cam Atkinson. So, yeah, I mean, also part of I don't think it can be understated either. The Flyers defense is better than it was last year, which, I mean, again, like with Hart, you expected that bounce back, mainly because of how terrible it was last year. But they've also made life a little bit easier for Hart and Jones as well. They haven't been perfect, of course. Looking at you, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Travis Sanheim as well. But yeah, Flyers goaltending. It's good for once. It's nice. I guess this was what it was like back in the 70s when you had Bernie Perron or Ron Hextall in the 90s.
I'm just waiting for it to fall off. I'm really sorry, but I'm waiting for it.
I mean,
I'm waiting for Hart to go back to the way it was last season. I'm waiting for Jones to be Jones, and then I ask myself, what do the Flyers do?
I think you could definitely make it seem smart to expect Jones to go back to Jones. I mean, 3 straight years of an 8.96% save percentage at his age. I mean, it's not easy to reverse that trend. The one interesting thing about Jones is that the Flyers goalie coach, Kim Dillabaugh, was actually his goalie coach when he was first coming up in the NHL with the LA Kings organization. So that was one thing I looked at. Okay, if you're expecting Jones to bounce back, this is a legitimate reason why you could expect that. And that was something I even had keyed on. Others had keyed in on before me. I wasn't like the first person to point this out or anything, but other people had keyed in on that before the start of the season, and so far it's been playing out like that. And then I obviously talked about Hart earlier, where, I mean, you look at his save percentage across 4 years, and last year, as of right now, seems like the very clear outlier. Could it eventually age into not being the clear outlier? Yes, but we're not there yet, and hopefully we won't be there, and I don't think we are going to be. So
you mentioned there about goalkeeping coaches. How important do you think they are? Because one of the things I've noticed about the Avalanche this season is that Darcy Kemper's blocker side has been fucking terrible.
Well, we should just ask Emma, who's an Islanders fan. She can tell us all about Mitch Korn, who's like the goalie whisperer up there with Barry Trotz, and what he's done for guys like Robin Lehner and Semyon Varlamov and even Ilya Sorokin.
I love Ilya Sorokin. I think he should be the starting goaltender. When Semyon Varlamov comes way too far out of the net, and that's when they lose, is when that happens, because he just basically lets pucks in.
Is that bad?
Yeah,
It seems
I think
bad.
the goalie coach. What? The goalies up here are good, except, well, sometimes they're good. Sometimes it's very patchy.
I mean, since Korn and Trotz have gotten there in 2018, their goals and defense has been much, much better.
Yeah, Trotz was like the best thing to ever happen to the Islanders, for sure. And Lou Lamoriello too.
Yes.
Yes.
We need
I
a
also
goaltender
have to
coach
go.
then,
I
really,
have
really badly.
another meeting.
Yeah, I think it's a good time to wrap the show up. Obviously, Trey had to leave early.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to close out just the Vendetta Hockey Show, second episode. Pretty good one, I'd say. So, again, thanks for watching. Follow all of us on Twitter. Socials have been flashing along the bottom of the screen throughout the entire episode. Follow Vendetta as well. Make sure to check out vendettasportsmedia.com for tons of hockey coverage, including my recap of tonight's Flyers Maple Leafs game and every Flyers game the rest of the season. So thank you all for watching. Emma, Gavin, have nice nights, guys, and we'll see everyone next time.